Okay, Peter, you have always made records, going all the way back to Humble Pie days, Frampton's Camel, and of course your celebrated solo albums for a single record company. And now, after all those years, you're on another label, you're on Atlantic Records. And I'm wondering whether that kind of gives an artist a psychological lift, kind of like when people move into a new house.
Well, I think that not only being with a new record label, taking some time off and sorting everything out, it's great because everything is new. There's new record label who seem very excited, which is obviously pleasing. New management, Tony Smith. Let's see, what else? I've got new publishing companies and new guitars, everything, so everything's brand new. And it's sort of like starting again for me, and that's the way I'm looking at it. And I took a long time preparing everything, because everything is new once again.
Well, upon first listening to the new album, to Premonition, the first thing that struck me, at any rate, was how incredibly rhythmic the album is. I'm especially talking about drums and the keyboards and synthesizers.
Right.
It's real rock and roll for the 80s. And I was wondering whether that was purposeful when you set out to do the record, whether you wanted to get a real rhythmic, almost danceable rock and roll record, or if it's something that just happened in the studio.
What happened was that with having my own studio that we're sitting in right now, and the advent of drum machines and things like that do aid you in writing, you can set up your own rhythms, which might not be necessarily what a drummer would play. And you can write the song with this incredible rhythm, and then you can simplify it later. So some of the rhythms I just put down to sort of turn me on to write, as it were. I think that when it comes to the songs themselves, I went through a period of thinking where I felt that possibly I should be writing more contemporary, and various people in the business said, well, you shouldn't write like Peter Frampton, it's not that time right now, which obviously was awesome to me, and created a writer's block. So that one day I realized that when I'd finally got an outlet once again for all my new stuff, with the new team around me, I suddenly sat down with the old acoustic again and wrote what I usually do, which is what comes naturally. And then what you can do, it doesn't really matter. A good song is a good song is a good song. And you can mess it up, but the way to do it is to just do it with today's technology.
I think you might have also, in describing how the music came to be so rhythmic as it is, also might have answered a question that a lot of your fans have had. What happened there in the late 70s and early 80s? And you just kind of said that there was a lot of pressure brought upon you by others to do what you weren't feeling as an artist to do, kind of like if somebody said to Picasso, don't paint blues this year. Blues are not in. Everybody's into oranges, so make your paintings orange.
I agree with you. I think that the problem stemmed from the fact that, on reflection, I became a professional musician when I was 16, which was 1966, and had been in bands since I was 10, And really, if you think about it, I went straight from the Herd into Humble Pie, into my solo thing, and then the live album. That sounds very quick, what I've just been through, but it was a long, we're talking 15 years. And when the live album hit, I'd been working non-stop, 6-9 months touring a year. And when the live album came out, it sort of doubled. And I think that what I didn't realize at that point was that you could just turn on the creative juices, and there was pressure for, okay, the follow-up, and then the next one and the next one. And I think that what a lot of people, what people should do, that I've realized after having a hit that big, which set a precedent as far as live albums anyway, is that you have to stop and take time out to go right back and take your time to look at new ways of writing and all that. I never took time off. I went, because of the pressure of, and shall we say greed, of not myself as much as people around me. No one thought of Peter the person, and it was very difficult to say no to all the things that went on there because you waited all your life for this moment. And what I should have done right then is what I've done over the last 2.5, 3 years, which is to sit back and take stock. And during that period, I got married and I have a baby, and that changes you a lot too. It's something that should have been done in 1977, which took me to now to realize that I had to do it, because you can't keep tapping the same well. You got to wait for it to rain, you know?
Yeah, one thing a lot of people maybe who are rock and roll fans don't understand is that when somebody becomes as enormously successful as you became, you become a kind of a money-generating machine. So the pressure, I guess, could be just tremendous to, like, keep doing something to keep generating all those bucks.
I love to perform live. I mean, the people that were running the show at that point knew that. And I think that instead of thinking, well, can he manage another month of touring, they said, yes, he can manage another, rather than thinking of my career in the long term, which, being totally in a sort of almost fantasy world at that point and loving every minute of the newfound adulation, I couldn't even see the wood for the trees at that point. So I think that knowing that I am a live person and I live for that, it was taken advantage of.
Let's get back to the album again, to Premonition. There's the great Frampton guitar, and it seems to me like, and maybe this goes along with what you're saying right now about really doing your music as opposed to what other people are telling you to do, but it seems to me that you really dug in on this one. Maybe you could, I mean, were you feeling that comfortable and unpressured in the studio, given the significance that this album is in your career?
I'm always pressured in the studio. It's not my first love, but I know that I have to do it. No, I think that along the way, when you're touring 9 months of the year and you get off the road, you don't want to look at a guitar. And this is obviously wrong, and not working for a long time. I had got out of the habit of practicing. So over the last 2 to 3 years, I would set aside time each day, not for my Nautilus, but for my guitar playing. I practiced a lot. I mean, I felt like I was 16 again, and I would come up with new licks every day and feel really good about myself. And then I managed to strike up a very dear friendship with Steve Morse, who has just released a new album. He was with the Dixie Dregs, but some people put us together to write a song for his album, and is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the finest guitarists in America, at least. And he was became my mentor, as far as, because I saw how much he practices, and as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't need to, you know, but you always need to practice. And we'd get up in the morning and we'd go and do 45 minutes of just jamming together, and I'd catch about the last 4 notes that he played, you know. You have to keep playing, you have to keep practicing, you have to write every day like an author, and that's what I try to do now.
Or you get rusty.
Absolutely. And by the time I went into the studio, I felt very, very confident in my guitar playing, and most of them are first takes. If I can do it in the first or second take, when I don't think about what I'm playing at all, which I know is a different way to a lot of people, but if it can just come from here, then it usually turns out to be a very emotional and satisfying solo.
And it was like playing the guitar that got you into this world of rock and roll in the first place. I mean, what you said when you were 16 or 15 years old, what you wanted to do was play guitar. And that was what always came first to you, wasn't it?
Absolutely. When I joined, just to go back a little bit, when I joined The Herd as rhythm guitarist, there was a personnel change, and I became instantly the lead guitarist. I was hired for my chops, as it were, even as young as 15. And then, of course, the managers came in, and it was sort of create a pop band at that time, like the time of the Monkees. And we were a much finer band than that, but the managers looked down the line and said, the commercial face, and that's where my problem has always lied, in as much that people can sell the face much quicker than they can sell the playing. So I've constantly had to fight. I'm older now and I don't look so good, so it's perfect. It's time to make people realize that first and foremost, I never say singer-songwriter, I say guitarist, singer-songwriter. And now I feel very confident that that's what is coming across.
Well, I know for a fact that other guitarists look to you. I mean, that you're an inspiration for other guitarists. And it also occurred to me in getting this interview together that during those, quote, Frampton Comes Alive years, unquote, that even the millions of your fans, lots of them, never really realized that what was really happening on Frampton Comes Alive and on the studio albums of those years was some extraordinary guitar playing. I mean, up there with the very, very best, rather than, you know, the face and the voice and the personality. I was wondering whether that bothered you then.
If you remember, when the live album came out, as far as pulling an audience and having a terrific amount of people in my following, especially around America, because we'd concentrated here, it would be a lot of guys as well as girls in the audience. And my guitar playing, I think, was a lot of the reason why people came. I know that. So when the live album came out, the general public that all of a sudden seemed to pick up on that didn't know what I looked like except for the album cover. And at the very beginning, there was a very, it was very credible. I was credible as a musician. But then at that point, over publicity, doing too many daytime talk shows, too many front covers with my shirt off, those sort of things, put me into another category of, quote, celebrity, teeny star or whatever, rather than a musician. And it culminated, I think, around about 1981, when some of the audience were, you know, as you go out the backstage, a girl came over to me and said, "Wow, I never realized it was you playing guitar on all those records."
Let me take you back even further for just a minute, because recently MTV, for some reason or another, has dug up a really fabulous old black and white piece of film, I guess it is, of Humble Pie in performance. And there's Peter Frampton, looking like he's having an absolutely marvelous time playing guitar, because you didn't sing lead with Humble Pie. So were you all guys all having that much fun? Was it that wonderful just to be playing? Because it's a wonderful little piece of film.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the first single that Humble Pie released, and we had basically just got it together in the country cottage, as every band, Traffic, did and all that. It was the same period, '69, I believe, and it was just fantastic to get together with a band where I didn't have to. I did sing, you know, we shared vocals, but Steve Marriott was the main singer in the band, and as far as I was concerned, I was the lead guitarist. We played a lot of leads together, but it was, I'm not demeaning Humble Pie, but it was a great apprenticeship for me, putting all my jazz ideas from the guitar, combining them with the opposite, or just the extremes of rock and blues with jazz. And it was a very, very enjoyable period, and they seem to be playing that video a lot.
I know, which is nice, because it's really wonderful.
I just look like a beanpole.
It was about 10 years ago. You were, without question, the biggest rock and roll concert attraction. You sold more records than anyone in history. You were on the cover of just about every magazine. And at the height of it all, you had a serious automobile accident, just as everything was really peaking for you. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if you can remember, and maybe we'll share with us, what must have been going on in your mind, lying in a hospital bed, the world wondering, I think it was seriously enough, wondering whether you were going to make it, mm-hmm. And what kind of an effect on your life did that auto accident have just about 10 years ago?
It was a good thing. I mean, it wasn't a good thing physically to me, but mentally I think it was the best thing that could have happened, in as much it gave me time. I didn't have any time. I had a lot of time to sit on my own or lie on my own and reflect. And I realized that a lot of things were going wrong. Basically, I was being used, as far as I was concerned, to make other people a lot of money. And it was the beginning for me of finding out exactly what was going on. It made me realize that I had totally lost control of my own career, which I was totally in control of until the live album came out. And I basically had time to just sit, think, and start working towards taking time off and changing everything, getting rid of everything that was bad around me. And at one time, I did think, because I had a very bad injury to my right arm, and I was very, very scared that I would never play again. So that also made me realize what do I do if I can't play guitar? It was very, very important to me, obviously. And just about every bone in my body had been broken. So the first time when I was able to pick up a guitar again, I didn't put it down for a few hours. And it was made me realize a lot of things that I took for granted. And when you do come that close to disappearing, it's thank God that it didn't happen, obviously, but it was a good thing in a lot of ways.
So in a real sense, the day you walked out of that hospital was the first step on the road that's brought you to this moment in this album.
I would say so. I call that day was the end of the Comes Alive era. It was the beginning of the end of that whole thing, and then becoming in control, because there's nothing more, how can I put it, the rage you feel inside when you suddenly realize why your life is becoming out of control. Then it's time to use that energy that you now have to put everything right. I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm never going to make a mistake again, but I won't make those ones again, for sure.
Okay, so let's talk then about Premonition, as I said. Should we read anything into the title, by the way? I mean, I know there's a song on the album called Premonition, but are you kind of feeling some kind of premonition about something?
Well, to be honest, premonition to me is a sign of something good. Usually a premonition is something bad, but to me, I feel nothing but good about what I've done since we started the album.
In what period of time did you write this? There are 9 songs on the album, I believe.
Yes.
In what period of time did you write the songs on Premonition? Do they go back several years? Did you write them just before the album was made? Are they brand new or what?
Okay. Premonition and Lying were the 2 songs that are the oldest. And in fact, when I went to England 3 years ago, those were the only 2 songs that I had to play Tony Smith, which he said, well, they're both hits to me, which was this was the first person that I'd played them to that I respected, and we started working together after he heard those 2 songs. So then there was a period, because I was so hyped at the fact that people thought that what I was doing, it gave me an incredible sense of security, which hadn't been there up to that point, that then I actually wrote, not that all of them are on the album, but I actually wrote 6 songs in a 5-day week. I wrote 2 in 1 day. So I would say over a 2.5-year period, there's 25 songs that I wrote in that period and finished. There's others, obviously. It was the most productive period I'd ever had.
In the song Into View, there is, towards the end, just before the record starts to fade, there's the familiar, what I call the Frampton wah-wah vocals, the kind of thing you did in Show Me the Way and during the Frampton Comes Alive years. Did you plan to put a little of that in, or did that just kind of happen in the studio while you were recording it?
I wanted to try and update it and use it somewhere, but I didn't want, and Pete Solly and I had a big talk about this, he's the producer with me on the record, that we didn't want to harp on anything from the old days. We wanted to show something new. But therefore, when it came to this rhythmic ending part, I decided to get the talk box out again and try and flange it or something, to make it sound more updated. So thanks to the guitar synthesizer, the Roland guitar synthesizer, I managed to find a sound that I'd never got with the talkbox. And it is underplayed, but for those who know, it's there and it's that familiar sound. And obviously live, that part will probably be extended. Because I just wanted to give a hint of it to let people know that I haven't thrown it away or anything.
Is there sometimes a temptation to try to rewrite songs that were tremendous hits in the past? I mean, when you're sitting and writing, is there a temptation to do, to rewrite, Baby, I Love Your Way or something?
There were a couple of years there where I would have done anything to rewrite Baby, I Love Your Way or Show Me the Way or even Do You Feel? But it's like, I tell you what really made me feel good was when I got the song Lying down, which I wrote. If I turned round now, I'd be in the same position as I wrote it. To me, it was a Frampton type song. It was I know when something is uniquely sounds like myself. It was something that I could have written many years ago, but it had, because I wrote it on synthesizer, it had a very 80s contemporary sound to it, and I just sort of shouted for joy that this song to me meant a lot. It was like we started again. And then every song that I wrote after that I wasn't trying to rewrite the 70s. I was trying to compete with Lying, which was a new standard for me. It was something totally different, but you can still say it's a Frampton song.
Most of the songs on Premonition seem to be perfect for concert pieces. They all seem to be able to just take off. So the obvious question is, how extensive a tour is there going to be, or does one wait to see how the record is received before those plans are made? But it sure does seem like the material on the album could be some hell of a show.
Well, I think so too. It wasn't planned in any way like that. I mean, I don't write thinking about how it's going to be on stage. I usually adapt a number for stage. You don't know that until you actually get in front of an audience and see some things will work on record, and live you might need more of that or whatever. It's great to find that out when you go in front of an audience. But we do have plans to tour.
If the album happens in a really big way, my premonition is, by the way, that it will, and I'm sure that you would love to see that happen. But my question is, a really big album might demand a really big tour.
Yes.
Would you kind of structure that tour, or the way you conduct yourself on and off the stage in that tour differently to make sure that what happened the last time doesn't happen again? Absolutely.
The idea of touring would be, no matter how big the album becomes, hopefully large, that I would get back to doing theaters. I'm sure it will be lovely to do a couple of big shows, but I love playing to, it doesn't matter how many people. I think it would be nice to play to smaller crowds, no matter how big it gets.
Do you think that it's possible to have a hit record without a video anymore?
It would, to put it honestly, I wouldn't want to try these days, but yes, I think so. I think that the best, for me, the first one I have done, which is for Lying, is a live in a surreal studio atmosphere. That's the way that I think I would like people to see me, first of all. I'm not saying that we won't get into a slight conceptual idea for another one, but I think I like watching live videos myself, because it's what I feel I do best. And I think it's very honest.
Some artists do their best work when their personal life's just crumbling about them. We could give a big list here.
Right.
People whose best stuff came out when they were going through divorces, when there was death in their families, when they were broke, when they were drinking, whatever. Others do their best work when their personal life becomes serene and stable and secure. How about you?
I think that I have had a history of writing, let's say the Frampton's Camel album, for instance, which is lyrically a very, very sad album. But I think a lot of good songs came out of it. I'm not the sort of person that waits until I feel sad to write a song, obviously. But my life, my personal life, was together, and then we had Jade, our baby. But obviously, because of things that were going on around us, we didn't know when the record was coming out. Things were pretty trying, obviously. So I would say that I wrote just with this incredible feeling of things wanting to happen, even if things weren't terrifically good. But obviously when Jade was born, that is a higher point than in any of my gigs or records or anything, having a child, which totally, if there was any more to calm down in me, that calmed me down. And I think made me grow up an incredible amount. And I think this sort of shows in the album, because it's a very confident, I feel it's a very confident, exudes confidence, and maybe slightly more mature, even though that one's not supposed to be mature to do rock and roll.
Okay, Peter Frampton, thank you very much.
My pleasure.